Hi and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar on Global State of Scams 2023. We're doing this webinar for the third year in a row, mostly because the topic is becoming more and more relevant each time, and also because we got really nice feedback from the previous events that we've been doing. So today's webinar, I would say, is kind of tradition for us. My name is Alona Borzemska, and I head up the commercial department at the DomainCrawler, and I will be the host of today's webinar, a collaborative effort between DomainCrawler and the Global Anti-Scam Alliance, aka GASA, the short term for which I'll be using today. And together we strive to create a more secure online environment for everyone. In this session, we'll dive into the Global Anti-Scam, Global State of Scams report by the GASA and explore strategies at how to fight online scams and counterfeiting at the online, corporate, and governmental levels. And as always, we have great speakers today with us. I will start with Jorij Abraham, General Manager of GASA. Jorij has been a part of the international e-commerce community since 1997, and now he is Managing Director at Global Anti-Scam Alliance, as well as the e-commerce foundation, whose mission is to foster global digital trade. And Jorij also manages scamadvisor.com, the global blacklist for malicious websites. And our second speaker is, of course, Richard Wikström, the founder of the DomainCrawler. Richard has an extensive expertise when it comes to hosting, domain names, SEO, IT security, and many other things. Throughout his career, he's been involved as the founder and board member in numerous companies such as Stay Secure, Home Security, Wincher, and Internet Vikings. In 2008, Richard started a project that eventually evolved into a separate company called DomainCrawler today, a leading B2B provider of structured web data. And before we dive into all of the presentations and everything around that, I would really like to take a moment to wait a couple of the seconds for the other participants of this webinar to join us, and also for those who have already joined. I would be really happy to get to know you. So feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. Tell us more about yourselves, where you're coming from, what is your name, what is the industry you represent. I don't know, any fun fact about the scams or anything you think would be interesting to share today. We'd be happy to learn more. I know that also there is a short lag between the messages in the chat and how we speak. So we'll wait a couple of the moments for that. It's always interesting to see if there are any familiar names that are joining us for the webinars. Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. Maybe we'll come back to this in a couple of the seconds. But before that, that is really a pleasure to have all of you with us today. And if you have any questions during the webinar or during the presentation, feel free to put them into the chat box, and we'll make sure to come back to that at the end of the webinar during the Q&A session. And also, the recording of this webinar will be sent to you via the email that you mentioned on the registration. And now I imagine everyone is really looking forward to the presentation, but I still have a couple of more announcements to make. So first of all is that DomainCrawler will be hosting a workshop on October 16th at 4 p.m., during which Richard will show on practice how to use the domain data to find the scammers, to find the online brand infringements, and then how to cluster all of the data together to get a very complete picture on what's going on with that. The link will be shared in the chat, so you can register for that already. And the second, also very exciting announcement is the Global Anti-Scam Summit in Lisbon on October 18th and 19th that will gather leading minds in the area of combating internet scam. And the great thing about that you can attend it both online and in person. So make sure to register for that as well, and we'll be sharing the link in the chat. And yeah, stay with us till the end. I will be sharing more details by the end of this webinar. And I guess now it's enough with all of the introductions and like housekeeping. I'll be happy to turn the stage to Jorij, who will start with the keynote. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Let me share my screen. One moment.
Thank you. And thank you. I can see we have a lot of people in the chat. It's people from all over.
Yeah, I see a lot of familiar or not faces, but names.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that. I was looking at the private chat and was like, okay, no one is sharing nothing in that section. I didn't see. Oh, we have a lot of people with us today. That's cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of people. It's really nice to see you all from all over the world, from Sweden to the US to Spain to the UK and so on. So really nice to see all of you. Some, like Jorij said, familiar faces and some new.
Yeah.
Alona, just checking. Do you see my screen?
No. Oh, yeah.
No,
now I see it. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Shall I start the presentation?
Yeah, we're looking forward to that.
Okay. First of all, again, thank you very much for being here. Many of you know what we do, but for those who don't, I run two organizations, the Global Anti-Scam Alliance, as well as scamadvisor.com. Our goal, however, is the same. Our goal is really to help consumers worldwide not get scammed. And we do that with GAZA, the Global Anti-Scam Alliance, which is a non-profit organization where we bring together law enforcement, policymakers from governments, consumer authorities, brand protection, cybersecurity, and anybody who has, for one reason or another, as goal to help consumers not get scammed, not by fakes, etc. And we run scamadvisor.com, which is an online algorithm which helps more than 6.5 million consumers every month to check if a website is legit or a scam. And we add more than 1.5 million new domains to our database every month. And we are very happy that we work together with DomainCrawler to continuously improve our data and help people make better checks to see if a website is legit or maybe a fraud. Very briefly, what ScamAdvisor does is you can type in any domain and you real-time get a score. 1 being very, very likely a scam, 100 meaning very likely legit. And we also try to explain why we think a website is a scam or legit. And currently, we're working on expanding towards email addresses, phone numbers, cryptocurrency. In the end, our ambition is to really become the global database for scams. So enough about my organizations. Maybe taking one step back, what are scams? Scams are a weird kind of crime because it's the only crime you can fall for. You are giving somebody something to a scammer. You're giving money or your identity. And that makes it a different from other crimes where things are taken from you. Of course, scams are very broadly defined. And that makes also our life difficult. When does something become a scam? And for those, this is actually not a scam. It's a product, and you can really buy it. If it makes sense, you can have discussions about it. I think it's more a joke. So how we define scams is when there's a huge gap between the promise being made and the actual product or service being delivered. And there are hundreds of scams, from investment scams, online shopping scams where you don't get a product or you get a fake, investment scams where people are promising to fly to you, but they never do, etc. What's interesting to see is actually scammers are more and more actually delivering a product. They are offering a service. So we see a lot of online shopping scams where one product is offered and they're sending you some piece of junk so that they can tell PayPal and the credit card companies that the product was actually shipped and delivered. Investment scams are the second most popular scam on ScamAdvisor. And of course, these return on investments are way, way, way too huge. But especially in developing countries, we see a lot of people fall for these kinds of scams because their inflation ratios are very high and they don't have the financial background to see that these kind of return on investments are not realistic. Also, we see a lot of employment scams, also again in developing countries, but increasingly also in Western countries, where people are getting scammed and be made promises for easy jobs, work at home. Sometimes are too incredible to be true, but they still have make victims. Unfortunately, there was a Japanese lady who paid an astronaut €35,000 to help him get back to Earth. She had built up a romantic relationship with this gentleman, and for her it was so real that she believed this story. And that happens to many victims. The scammer is so good that it's no longer for the victim possible to identify it as a fraud. The reason for this presentation is, of course, to share with you how big online scams have become. And this is the fourth time we're doing this study, the Global State of Scam Report. But this time we took a different approach. In the first 3 years, we asked governments and law enforcement in 40 plus countries how many people have been scammed, how much money was lost, and what are the biggest trends. This year we took a different approach. We asked the consumer, and nearly 50,000 of them worldwide, and we asked them, have you been scammed? How much money did you lose? What happened and why? And all the data you see have been normalized, because you see that we have slightly more men answering the survey, especially in developing countries, than women, and also a very high university degree. And that's also because in developing countries, we see that people with a university degree are more willing to answer the survey than people with a lower education level. But we normalize the results to prevent these biases. So my first result is that in general, consumers believe that they are very, very good at recognizing scams. And that might be actually our biggest problem. People are confident they can recognize scams, and it differs strongly per country. In Japan, there are the most careful, with only 32% of the people saying, I might be able to recognize scams. Well, in countries like Indonesia and Egypt, this figure is very high, 84 or 76%. Also, what we ask the consumer is, how frequently do you encounter scams via email, Facebook advertising, WhatsApp, phone calls? And here, more than or nearly 60% said, I'm at least confronted with a scam once per month, which is an incredible amount. But if you look a little bit more to the left, you see that every day, about 8% of all the people in our survey are getting scammy messages, or 90% most days of the week. We also asked if it is increasing, and there also the answer is clear, that 45% of the people say the number of scams has really been increasing. So the volume of scam messages we get is growing quickly. What was an eye-opener for me is I expected actually that most scams would be happening online. That's not the case. We see them in that the most popular media are actually still phone calls and text messages. This differs a lot per country. The phone is the most used in Russia and in Thailand, with 91 up to 99% of the participants saying that they have been approached by phone with a scam. But postal mail, for example, is still very popular in America, with 14% of the Americans receiving scams via email. So it's not only online. Of course, online is still a very big part of it, especially if you zoom in on, okay, which brands are being used, which platforms. Then I think most of you will not be surprised that the most used or misused brands, I should say, are Facebook and WhatsApp. They are the most named media platforms named by our participants, followed in the end by Gmail, but also with other other brands of Gmail like Google. Globally, we also asked to the participants, did you have an actual scam experience in the last 12 months? And this figure shocked me. 78% of the participants says, yes, I've had a scam experience. I not only received a message, I actually fell for it. And here we see online shopping scams being the most popular, between brackets, followed by identity theft and investment scams. Those are the most occurring kinds of scams at the moment. We read a lot of about romance scams and friend-in-need scams in the media, but they are, with only 13% of the 12% of the participants, relatively small. If you look at which countries are scammed the most, then unfortunately Kenya has the honor of being number one, followed by Brazil and South Africans. These people in these countries lost the most money. Japan, Austria, Germany, the Belgium, and the Netherlands were the countries where the people lost relatively the least money in the last 12 months. What is a real concern is the re-victimization rate. We asked the participants not only have they been scammed once in the last 12 months, but which scams happened. And many people actually checked off two kinds of scams. So we see, for example, in Kenya, the average Kenyan person got scammed 3 times if he was a victim. And we see that actually also with normal crime. Burglars often go back to the same house because the person bought new stuff and you can steal the new stuff. And that's also happening with online scams. People are approached again by the scammer and victimized another time. What is sad to say is that actually developing countries are, relative to their GDP, are losing the most money in online scams and fraud. We estimated, based on our 50,000 respondents, how much money is lost in total. And that's an incredible amount of $1 trillion was lost in scam, which is, for those countries we research, about 1% of their GDP in total. The number differs very strongly. In Kenya, this number was nearly 4.5%, while in Ireland, Netherlands, Belgium, there were less than 0.1, 0.12%. So we see that especially developing countries are scammed relatively towards their income the most. What is concerning is that of all the people we approached for the survey, in the end, 25% of those said that they have lost money in the last 12 months, which is an incredible amount of people. We also asked if participants are able to recover their money. And there the answer is that in most cases, they are not. Only 7% of the participants were able to recover all their money. 21% did not even try to recover its money. And 62% tried, but was not able to recover any money. And also here we see huge differences per country. And where there's a clear relationship is if the person reports the scam to the police, there's a way much higher success rate of also retrieving the money. So reporting to the police is actually a very important aspect. We also asked about the emotional harm. It's not only about money, it's also about the emotional harm being done. And there only 9.6% said, well, I don't care so much. It happened, I've been a victim, but it didn't hurt me. 59% of the people say it hurt them strongly or really had a traumatic effect on them. We see that especially with people who were victim of romance scams, where not only the money is involved, but also the relationship. Those are really hurt incredible much. We also asked, why are people actually being scammed? What is the reason they fell for the scam? Here we see that the attraction of the offer is still the main reason. Again, especially in developing countries. And in countries with a higher GDP, we see other reasons as well, as I did not identify the deceit, or I acted too fast, or I just took a gamble. I knew I could not trust it, but I can waste the money. I'm trying it again. We also finally asked, okay, but which checks do you take to see if it's a scam, yes or no? And here, I expected actually the rule, if it's too good to be true, it probably is to be the biggest. And in some countries it is. But in many countries, it's actually checking reviews on other websites. And that's a concern, because we know that third-party review sites are becoming less and less reliable because the scammers are bombarding these review sites with fake reviews. What's even worse is that the consumer also checks reviews on the same websites, which are not reliable at all, and even checks the SSL certificate to see is there an SSL certificate, so the communication is secure. However, an SSL certificate nowadays is free, and any scammer has it, so it's not a guarantee at all. But these old rules of checking reviews, checking SSL certificates are still top of mind, and actually not helping the consumer check if something is a scam or not. Also, a very big concern is that most participants said reporting a scam would not make a difference. And that's making it very hard for law enforcement to actually identify scams, because without having the scam reported, they also cannot act on it. Other improvements are making reporting easier and making it clear where to report a scam. Because nowadays people report scams to review sites, their banks, telecom operators, law enforcement, etc. The last question we ask to the consumer is how happy they are with their government in making them aware of scams, offering tools, offering protection, reporting scams, and finally also arresting the scammers. In general, no surprise, people are displeased with what their government is taking. Also here we see that, especially in Brazil and Thailand, both top scoring countries regarding online fraud, consumers are not happy. While in governments like Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and China, the government's actions are rated the most positively. Still, what has to be improved the most is the chance of a scammer being arrested. There, our 50,000 participants are the least happy with their governments. So to wrap up things, we only see the tip of the iceberg. Consumers are not reporting scams, and the percentage differs very strongly per country. We see now that online scams have become the first or most reported type of crime. In the UK, 41% of all scams are now related to, all reported crime, 41% is related to online fraud. And in Singapore, this figure is already 50%. We see that scammers are going pro, they're becoming more professional. And I'm going to skip a few slides because I'm running out of time. But I do see the number of scams increasing very rapidly because of the use of AI. We see now products coming on the market offered by scammers who really don't exist. So the consumer can no longer compare the product. They just say, they just give an AI the assignment to create a picture of a Darth Vader and a bat, and the product is created. And that works because people love those new products. They do not exist, and they cannot compare and check it out. Also, deep fakes are really on the market. We see that consumers are reporting their experiences with deep fakes, and it's really quickly rising, especially with romance scams. And you can no longer recognize them. So the moral of the story is scammers are winning, and we see that scams have become a global business within countries, certain companies or persons specializing. In Israel, we see a lot of money recovery companies helping the victim get his money back, which in many cases is not possible. Well, of course, Nigeria is known for advanced fee scams, and my country, the Netherlands, is offers a lot of services around bulletproof hosting, making it very difficult for law enforcement to take down websites. We see that the prosecution rate is very, very low. 41% of all crime reported in the UK is related to fraud, but only 2.5% is prosecuted. Worldwide, this figure is even worse. It's 0.05% according to the World Economic Forum. So how can we turn the tide? There's been put a lot of emphasis on building awareness amongst consumers, making consumers aware about scams. But actually, recent research is showing that it might not help. There is no relationship between awareness and a decreased number of victimizations. And the reason might be that people are, because they're more aware, they're more confident, and they take a different kind of risk, but they still take risks. At the Global Anti-Scam Summit last year, we gathered more than 200 ideas from the public, and we boiled those ideas down into 10 recommendations to turn the tide on scams, from raising awareness continuously to working towards a global fraud database hub. This year at the summit, and I think Fova already put the link in the chat, you're very much invited to join us either virtually or physically to join us, because we're going to turn those 10 recommendations into concrete actions and work together on better protecting consumers. And I hope you will join us either virtually or physically. What else can we do together? The goal of Gaza and Scam Advisor is really to bring together as many parties to share insights, knowledge, but also data. So we're building a global database of scammy websites, and we're now currently working on scammy email addresses, phone numbers, and crypto addresses. So please share with us your data so that we can pass it along to more than 100 organizations like antivirus companies, search engines, and more. And I'm very happy that with this, we also work together with DomainCrawler. So to wrap up, please use our data to protect your own employees, your own clients. Please share your bad websites with us so that we can share those domains again with many others. And please join our fight against scams by registering for our summit or joining our meetups. And with that, I would like to give back the floor to Alona. Alona?
Thank you very much, Jorij. That was like a very, very interesting and a really amazing presentation on the one hand, and it really has a lot of the interesting data to look at. But on the other hand, it's so sad to see at what lengths those scammers can go to achieve their goals. And as it was in your conclusion, that they are winning despite the fact that there are so many tools to fight them, and despite the fact that the awareness is also increasing, they are still winning, right? And I have a personal question. Like, you mentioned that there are very few cases when people are actually reporting this scam that they experienced. Why do you think that is happening? Why people are not reporting? They're not believing in that, or what do you think?
There are many reasons. The primary reason is people are getting a little bit tired of it because they do not have the feeling that the police is actually doing anything with it. And to a large extent, they're unfortunately right. I mean, even in my own country, law enforcement is really trying very hard to fight scammers. But if it's an online shopping scam and the site is in China, they just say, "I'm sorry, we cannot help you." And that's happening a lot. So people get tired of reporting scams, but actually we need that to fight them and to identify them better. So it's a difficult topic.
Yeah. And I would like encourage our participants to ask any questions regarding the presentation, some of the slides, or any data regarding the scam or everything connected with the scams. Please put all your questions into the chat, and we'll make sure to answer them.
I see. Sorry.
Yeah. No. Go on.
I see a question from Zakir Mailer. Is scams and phishing are part of social engineering attacks? Yes, often. I mean, if you define social engineering as manipulating the victim in giving his information or his money, then all scams and phishing attacks are social engineering. So yes.
All right. Then we have another question. It's from Steiner. Beside the report, what is recommended to do to reduce scam?
I can take that. It's like when people ask me like how do we solve this? And I wrote an article about it a few weeks back. It's education. It's education to every citizen that are using the internet. It's education to everyone that's just like, this is what's going on. Don't fall for it. Because yes, you do have scammers in the offline world as well, but many people do understand how a scammer looks like in real life, maybe not behind the keyboard. So it's all about education to each and every citizen in the entire world. And it's that would take years. So every time someone asks me, like, what can the government, what can we do? It's like preemptive actions just to educate everyone that's using the internet. It should be like a 30 minutes course before you can start using the internet.
Yeah, I agree with you, Rickard. We also say that scam education or scam awareness has to start in kindergarten and end in the elderly home, because scammers are attacking everybody. From Roblox, for those who have kids, they don't know Roblox. I mean, scammers are operating there to get to Papa's PayPal account and credit card, to elderly homes where people are being scammed from their pensions. So education should be continuously through the life cycle.
Yeah, but it's just too much, and it would save so much money for like the global economy if like more like EU, the US, like more government agencies take that and do that education, like you said, from the kindergarten.
I agree with you. And also we have the comment from Jeffrey Cleaves. He's saying that it's sad to see that the developing countries are losing the most. And he's also saying that he's been a witness to mobile operators in developing nations turning a blind eye to scams.
Yeah, I think there might be more reasons why, especially developing countries are suffering. It's not only education. It's also that we see a clear relationship with cryptocurrency. In developing countries, the own currency is not always as strong, so people are looking for other investment opportunities, and they don't have the knowledge. So the local economy, for example, with Turkey, we saw a sharp rise in scams when the financial crisis hit Turkey, I think 1-2 years ago. People are looking for alternatives, for solutions to flee the inflation, and then they are taking risks.
That's true, and I see that people are in absolute agreement with you, saying that education is the key to preventing being scammed, and that education is key, but it's hard to get to everyone. Where is that? It needs to be in the school curriculum, but not there yet globally. That's true. And also we have a question about the Europol. Do you think Europol in the European Union makes significant contribution in solving cross-border jurisdiction or international scam? Rickard, Jorij, who wants to take that one? I think Jorij.
I think you're a better connection with Europol and how they work with it. So
I mean, for the record, I think every law enforcement officer wants to fight scams. And my concern, I mean, what I hear from them is their biggest problem is legislation, and especially GDPR legislation is at the moment, I think, helping scammers more than consumers. Because, well, I mean, Rickard, we can discuss the who is data. That's really your expertise. I think that was the worst decision we ever made. What's your opinion about that?
No, but of course, like the WHOIS protocol came out 50 years ago to literally figure out who is behind the domain name, who is behind an IP address, to be able, if there is an error, if there is something issue with that domain name, so you can talk to the person. That's why it was invented. And now the EU have removed that possibility from a big part of the internet, like the commercial internet, if we put it like that. So it's not good, and it's somewhat harder to find. Like, you can go to the hosting company, you can go to the DDoS protection companies that are like usually protecting these kind of sites. But again, we need to work together, like from the hosting side, to really work against it and work to, and if you get an abuse report, that you actually work with it. Because I think, yes, the WHOIS is one issue, but hosting companies not handling abuse is probably a bigger issue.
And sorry, following up on that, because I do think registries and registrars should also take part in that in that direction.
No, but everyone that's connected to like a domain name it's a phishing domain name, like maybe the owner doesn't even know about it. It could be a hacked website, and then someone needs to take an action on it. It's just maybe the owner, the hosting company, everyone behind it. It's super legit, but they got hacked because of the latest issue with WordPress or any other PHP or any other security issues, and that's it's a major threat, because if you don't have a working abuse department, it won't work in the end.
That's true. We have a comment also connected to that from David Barnett. He says that they are actually saying that domains with TLDs associated with developing countries are disproportionately more associated with scams, may also be associated with the lack of investment into security infrastructure by ISPs.
Yeah.
Richard?
And it's also connected to the evolution of the internet. If you like say Sweden, 90% of Sweden have been online for the last 20 years. If you there's a lot of countries that are 20 years behind on that, or 30 or 40 years behind on that progression. And if the users, the user or the community or the people within the country doesn't know how they should treat the information on the internet, that I tell everyone, like, not everything on the internet is true. People still believe that sometimes.
Yeah, I fall for that sometimes.
And and it's sad that the weakest people gets hit by it.
Yeah.
But I do like to comment on that. I forgot the names. There are two new TLDs, which are too stupid for words, in the sense of how easy are you going to make it to scammers? It's a pity that I cannot recall it. Do you know what I mean, Richard?
No.
It's not AI or IO, but it's an example. Not Zip. Thank you, David. That's the one I meant.
Everyone knows, huh?
MEM, I'm not sure about. Box is also a good one. But also we have .ing. ING Bank loves that the TLD is created with .ing. But I think there can be much more done on the ICANN level, in my opinion, than at the moment. Rickard, do you want to answer this question, or Alona?
This is a tricky one. Like, the problem with it is that you don't want a controlling function that controls the internet, because then you remove like the entire point of the internet, and you put the entire governance of the internet in a hand like ICANN, and that's not the point of ICANN, because ICANN is just a non-profit organization with a few hundred people that are really working with it. They're not equipped to do that at all. So
no, but they could, of course, facilitate more management of DNS abuse. I mean, they don't have to be the one who's saying something is bad, but they, I mean, I think for the last 10 years, the result of all the ICANN meetings has been that there's not a definition of DNS abuse. Or am I being too harsh?
Yeah. Okay. Probably 100% correct. And we probably in 3 weeks in Hamburg will continue that discussion and see if someone figured it out.
Yeah.
So,
and coming back to the TLDs and the new extensions, there would be a new round of the new TLDs in 2026, if I'm not mistaken. So we would see many more coming, except the .zip and .meme. And yeah, before we also have the comment from Stena, do not blame the GDPR thing. So just wanted to mention that. Yeah, and that ICANN is not perfect, but the new RA amendment is a big step forward.
I agree.
Yeah. But everyone is seeing this more and more. Then we can all debate how quickly should it go. We have law enforcement on one side, we have ICANN, we have all the registries, registrars. There's so many different parties in this discussion, and it's so hard to put everyone together. Like we have Jorij and his team from Gaza that is doing one side, working a lot with law enforcement. We have DomainCrawler working with a lot of brand protection companies on the commercial side to try so that all the commercial brand owners attack the fraudsters from there. So I think give it 10 years, it will be hopefully better. And the reason for that is that 10 years ago, no one even talked about it. Like there were not organizations like brand protection agencies that were doing this at scale. There were small brand protection agencies that, yes, they did some searches on Google, found some counterfeit domain names, but they missed 90%. Today, with tools like DomainCrawler, we can find 90+% of all counterfeit websites. And then we remove what the reason why everyone is doing it, the money. Because if the sites are taken down so quickly, there's no money to be made from putting up the sites from the start, and that will be a positive spiral. But again, we, government, brand owners, like everyone on the internet needs to funnel money to this task, and then eventually it will solve itself. But we're talking about billions and billions on a global scale to solve it.
Yeah, and I think that's worth it because we're losing $1 trillion per year at the moment. But I don't want to put all the blame on the registrars and registries. I think it's really a joint responsibility of the entire journey scammers are taking. I mean, it starts, of course, with registering a domain name, but then they use social media to promote it. They're using a bank or a new payment method to get the money. I think in the end, every service provider has its responsibility to fight scammers. Maybe give a very recent example. Yesterday, my marketing colleague and I put out a phishing email to all the participants at our summit, inviting them to say that, hey, if you click here, you can get a free restaurant, free entrance to a restaurant on the first night. You only have to give your credit card details. And we used a web form for that, Typeform, and we got a lot of credit card details. But Typeform took us down within an hour. And that's, I think, a good example of fighting abuse. I mean, it's not perfect. We were an hour live. We got, I now have enough credit cards to retire. But they took the responsibility. And Corey, thank you very much for admitting you fell for it. You're super, very sportive from you. Thank you. Sorry, Alona, for interrupting.
No worries. That was interesting. Feel free to share the credit cards with us later after this webinar. No, and since we are on the topic of the TLDs, registries, what do you think? What is the most helpful domain data, first of all, to detect the online brand infringements, to detect the scams online, and then maybe to fight them? Is there any type of the domain name that you would like to highlight from the rest of it? Rickard?
I can say yes, re-registration of domain names. That's usually what I would look at. Re-registration of domain names, domain name that doesn't cost much, a domain name that everyone can register. You don't need to have any local presence or anything within that country. I think that's because a lot of these are just churning new domain names all the time. And if a domain name costs €100, you can't just churn a domain name. So the solution for it is we 10x all cost for all domain names. So a .com costs $100 instead of $10. We'll probably fight a lot of scammers with that, because they need to make so much money off each domain name.
Yeah.
So I would, because what we see, like, just look at XYZ 8 years ago when they launched, like before someone registered abc.xyz, they had a lot of promotions. We're doing like a lot of 50 cents for a domain name, just doing millions and millions of .xyz domain names. Maybe not to the best users. And that's like .zip, probably the same thing today. And try to just, if I can say you need to charge $50 for a domain name, that would probably help a lot. Yeah, price
Do you think that is ever possible, that the domain name would cost?
Well, no, it's impossible to do it, but it would probably work a bit.
I do think we will see in the future quality domains and quality TLDs and bad TLDs. I mean, XYZ, TLD, and a few others, they are so cheap that I would not be surprised that some internet service providers are just going to say, well, if 60% of the websites from this TLD are bad, maybe I should just block it, because I think the brand is going to be important, and consumers are going for are slowly catching on that they should go for reliable TLDs, like for example .bank or others, where there's really some vetting going on. But maybe this is the long-term future. I'm not sure.
Thank you, Jorij and Richard. We have we have a few comments regarding the pricing, that the fixed price is not a good idea. So that's one. And we also have the question from Biren van Delsen. So many people are talking about DNS abuse and bad registrants. However, in many cases, the registrant is legit and the abuse is done via compromised websites. How can we attack that problem? Jorij, Richard, who would like to take that one?
But yeah, from a hosting standpoint, like, just because my view on it is that the hosting company will save so much support and issues. We had it at Internet Vikings, my hosting company, when we implemented a company called BitNinja. Like, basically, they have a global block list of every like crawling bad IP address, like that just blocks it, like on that server for those websites, which, like, we saved so much money because we have reduced the load on all our servers, so that we could handle more domain names per server, more customer per server. So I would say something like global blacklist, block list like that. Companies like BitNinja, there's a few others that is really good. Also, automated updates at WordPress, automated updates and other CMSs, PHP, auto updates, that the hosting companies are working with that. Because my belief is that the hosting company will save money because of it.
Yeah, I agree. I also agree with Biren's question. I think in the end, it's the responsibility of the website owner first to make sure that his website is safe. And if he's hacked or if he's not updating, then block the site, take or temporarily take it down until he has solved the issue. And with hosting companies, of course, it might be wise to make it easier for consumers or for customers to automatically update. But personally, I have no problems in giving a website which has been hacked and now has become a phishing trap to give that a very low trust score, because it's a risk for the consumer. And that's what I think in the end is the most important. And the website owner or the hosting company has to fix that.
That's true. We had a follow-up comment from David that the .brands as a security measure are only as good as people's knowledge of how to recognize the safe sites. And the reality, though, is that the people are so used to dealing with .com sites.
I agree. That's the reality. I do believe. I think the .gov in many countries is bringing value. We're currently having a discussion also in the Netherlands. Should we create a separate gov TLD for Dutch government websites? At least that might save a lot of problems. But you're definitely right, David, that .com is everywhere, and they're in general trusted.
That's true, and usually they are the biggest competitor in the comparing to the in the country's CCTLD. So they are taking the first places there. I think it's time to wrap up because we have a hard stop at 5 p.m. Central European time. So I'd like to say thank you for all of your questions. They really made the discussion here today and make it like really insightful. And big thank you to Jorij and Jorij for all of the insights, for the interesting chat. Don't forget to check out our website and connect with us on the LinkedIn. And of course, we look forward to seeing you on our upcoming webinars. So stay tuned and let us know if you have any questions. Have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you all.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good one.
Bye.